When did your mentor destroy your life in front of a room full of people? Throwaway AA account title. I finally tried to cut the cord with my 79-year-old mentor, and he completely nuked my life in front of a room full of recovering addicts. I am absolutely shaking right now. I don't even know where to start with this, honestly. I'm typing this from my 2018 Honda Civic in the Costco parking lot because I literally cannot go back to apartment 3B right now. My hands are still shaking so much I'm hitting the wrong keys on my iPhone 14, which is currently at 3% battery NGL because of course it is. I know I should call my sponsor, but I need to get this out first. I need to know if I'm insane or if this is the most toxic manipulative bullshit you guys have ever heard. So here's the deal. My name is Henry Hill, 23M. I'm in recovery, almost 2 years sober next month, thank God. When you're young and trying to navigate the whole AA thing, they tell you to find a strong sponsor and build a support network. I did that, or at least I thought I did. Enter Jack Core 79M. Jack is like a legend in our local fellowship. Been sober 40 years. He's that guy who always has a perfectly ironed shirt, smells faintly of expensive pipe tobacco even though he doesn't smoke anymore, he just owns expensive things, and gives these profound, slightly cryptic shares. He took me under his wing about 6 months into my sobriety. He wasn't my official sponsor, mine is Mark, who is amazing but lives 3 hours away, but Jack quickly became the centerpiece of my life. My unofficial, overly involved mentor. I was naive, I guess. Passed me with such an idiot seriously. I mistook his control for care. The theme here, if you haven't guessed, is codependency. Jack didn't ask for things, he just assumed my time belonged to him. It started small. Could I drive him to his doctor's appointment? Sure, it was a Tuesday at 11:47 a.m., meaning I had to use 3 hours of PTO, but I did it. Could I drop off his dry cleaning? Of course. Could I help him figure out his Zelle transactions because he's not good with this new technology? Fine, but it got worse. The things he asked for were never urgent, but he made them sound like life or death. I missed an important meeting with my boss last month because he called me 27 times in 1 hour insisting he needed me to check his mail immediately because he thought a check for $200 might have arrived. It hadn't, obviously. I spent a whole Saturday assembling an IKEA desk for him, the cheap kind that falls apart if you look at it wrong, while he sat there sipping iced tea, telling me about the spiritual principles of humility. I was literally sweating, trying not to slice my finger on a cam lock while he talked about how important it was to serve others. I was getting drained. I realized I was spending more time running Jack's errands than focusing on my own life, my steps, or my actual job. I work in inventory management, and my inbox is at 247 right now, which is giving me hives. The money stress was awful too. Jack is supposedly wealthy, but he's always forgetting his wallet or waiting for a transfer. I paid for his lunch at Panera Bread 4 times last week. He would order the $43.67 meal for 2 and then look expectantly at me. I was already stressed trying to cover my half of the $1,247 rent for apartment 3B and trying to chip away at my credit card debt from when I was active. Every time I tried to bring up the cost of gas for his trips, he'd just sigh and say, "Henry, my boy, you can't put a price on service." I finally decided I had to draw a boundary. I was literally going to lose my job if I kept prioritizing his needs over basic professional survival. I booked a therapy appointment out of network, which cost me a fortune thanks insurance, and she confirmed Jack was manipulative and I was the classic codependent. The final straw came last week. I had an interview scheduled for my absolute dream job, a supply chain analyst role at a major logistics firm. 5th floor office, salary boost, real benefits. I was pumped. Jack knew about this. I told him I needed Thursday afternoon free to prep, polish my shoes, and review the materials. On Wednesday night, he called me sobbing, full-on performance art crying. He said his basement flooded, the whole thing was ruined, and he needed me to drive across town right now and deal with the plumber who was charging $85 just to look at it. I told him I couldn't, that I needed to be clear for the interview. He immediately stopped crying. The switch was instant. "So you're choosing your career over a man who might lose his home, Henry? Is that what true service looks like?" The gaslighting was incredible. I was literally shaking, trying to hold my ground. I reminded him he lived in a multi-million-dollar house. He could call anyone. He didn't need me at 9 p.m. to watch a plumber look at pipes. I even offered to Zelle him the $85 fee immediately. He just hung up on me. I decided right then I was done, just done. I changed my routine. I muted his number on my iPhone, the one with the cracked screen, obviously. I stopped going to the 5:30 p.m. meeting where he was always at the door waiting for me. I felt relieved but also terrified. This is the codependency talking, I know, but I felt like I had abandoned my post. So Monday night I knew I had to face him eventually. I went to the main meeting downtown. It was packed, probably 50 people there. I walked in, grabbed a cup of coffee, gas station coffee, tasted like regret, and sat on the far side of the room near Karen Jenkins, 85F. Karen is another old-timer, but she and Jack are definitely competitive friends. They constantly jockey for who gets to chair the holidays and who gets to make the closing announcements. Karen is sharp, relentless, and has zero patience for bullshit, which is why I sought refuge next to her. I was starting to relax. The meeting was good. A young guy was sharing about step 3 and I was actually focusing on my recovery for the first time in weeks, not Jack's grocery list. Then the floor opened for general shares. Jack stood up. He walked right to the center podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked directly at me. My stomach dropped to the floor. I looked at Karen and she just rolled her eyes and muttered, "Oh God, here we go." Jack started sharing, but it wasn't a normal share. It wasn't about the steps, it was about me. "I wanted to share tonight about the concept of betrayal," he started, his voice thick with fake sadness. "We come into this fellowship seeking connection, seeking genuine support. We look for those who will walk the path with us, who will offer true, humble service regardless of their age." He paused, scanning the room, making sure everyone was hooked. I wanted to disappear into the cheap carpet. I was literally sweating, my chest getting tight. I took a young man under my wing, Jack continued, his eyes locked on mine. A dedicated young man. I have poured time, spiritual energy, and sometimes even considerable financial assistance into this boy, knowing how hard the early years are. I have driven him, fed him, lent him money when he had to cover a surprise $347 electric bill he couldn't afford on his own, and helped him navigate life. I could feel 50 pairs of eyes pivoting toward me. People who I respected, who I looked up to, who I shared with, were staring at me like I was some kind of parasitic little ingrate. Jack continued, ramping up the drama. And when I needed help the most, when my home, the sanctuary where I practiced my spiritual life, was threatened by a catastrophic event, this young man, this person I dedicated myself to mentoring, turned his back on me. He chose personal, selfish ambition over the principles of service. He hit the word selfish like it was a physical blow. Karen next to me visibly bristled. She tried to catch Jack's eye, shaking her head. He told me his job interview was more important than helping a friend in dire straits, Jack whispered, sounding defeated. He even tried to throw $85 at me like a charity case rather than offer his actual time. It was a stark lesson in true character. When the rubber meets the road, some people reveal that they are only in this program for what they can get, not what they can give. He then looked directly at me and delivered the absolute kill shot. Henry, I pray for you, he said, using my full name, which is completely against the unspoken rules of anonymity during a share. I pray that the selfishness you cling to doesn't take you out of this program, because that lack of willingness to serve is a lethal defect. The room was silent. You could hear the AC buzzing. My face was burning so hot I thought I might actually pass out. The shame, the public humiliation was overwhelming. People were murmuring, some looked horrified by Jack's breach of protocol, others were clearly judging me. I stood up, I couldn't breathe, I was shaking so violently my chair rattled. Jack, that's not fair, I stammered, my voice cracking. I told you I couldn't. I told you I had to focus on my livelihood and you were lying about the urgency, you were gaslighting me. Jack just smiled, the most condescending smile I have ever seen. See, friends, the defensive pride is immediately evident, no willingness to admit fault, no humility. Karen Jenkins, 85F, stood up instantly, glaring at Jack. Jack Core, you sit down, that is absolutely out of line and you know it. But Jack ignored her, he was on a roll. He was destroying my reputation, my standing in the only community that felt safe. All because I refused to be his personal errand boy and risk the only chance I had at financial security. And now I hear, Jack continued, voice loud and clear, stepping away from the podium toward me, that you think you don't need the fellowship anymore. That you've got this big new job on the 5th floor coming and you're too good for the people who supported you when you were nothing. You think you're ready to fly solo, Henry? He leaned in and I could smell the expensive cologne. Well, you just watch what happens when you try to fly without your foundation, Henry, he sneered, low enough that only the front row could hear, but the menace was clear. You watch what happens when you turn your back on your true friends. I didn't argue anymore, I just turned and ran. I literally sprinted out of the meeting, ignoring the whispers and the horrified looks. I got in my Civic, drove straight to the nearest Costco parking lot because it's well lit, and started ugly crying. Snot everywhere, mascara running. Wait, I don't wear mascara, but you get the idea. Full mental breakdown mode. I know I need to call Mark, my sponsor, but my brain is mush. I'm sitting here debating whether I should block Jack on literally every platform or if that makes me look guilty. But here is the real kicker, the thing that makes me think Jack is not just toxic but actually psychotic. I had that big job interview the next day, the dream job. I woke up totally wired, still reeling from the AA humiliation, but I pulled myself together. I wore the only suit I owned, drove downtown, and crushed the interview. I really felt amazing about it. The hiring manager, Ms. Thompson, seemed genuinely impressed. Yesterday morning, Ms. Thompson called me back. I was so excited I almost dropped my coffee, Starbucks, venti dark roast, necessary fuel. She was incredibly apologetic. She said I was a fantastic candidate, easily the most qualified, and she personally wanted to hire me. But then she used the phrase, "We received some very concerning, highly detailed information about your recent professional choices and character during the final stage of vetting." My heart stopped. "Information that suggests a pattern of unreliability and selfishness," she continued, her voice clinical. "It was very recent, very specific, and quite troubling. It raises serious concerns about your ability to function in a high-trust, autonomous role, especially regarding financial transparency and attendance." I tried to deny it, tried to ask what specifically she was talking about. She just repeated that they couldn't hire anyone with documented issues of integrity. She hung up and I stared at the wall of apartment 3B, realizing what Jack had done. He didn't just humiliate me in the meeting. He didn't just damage my sobriety. He actively, specifically tried to destroy my future. I didn't tell Jack about the job rejection, obviously. I blocked his number, his Facebook, and his Venmo. I even blocked Karen Jenkins because I couldn't stand the thought of anyone from that community talking to me right now. I spent the whole day today numb. I couldn't eat, I couldn't focus at work. I felt like the world was ending. And then about an hour ago, I got a text message. Not from Jack because he's blocked. It was from a burner number. The text just said, "Consider this the first consequence of your pride. I told you I pray for you. P.S. The job was never yours." I am literally shaking. I don't know what he's capable of. Did he contact my current job? Is he going to come after my apartment? I am terrified. I literally have no idea what to do next or how to survive this. And the worst part, I still have to go to meetings. I still need my program. But how do I walk back into that room knowing he's there, watching, waiting for me to fail? I need advice. Has anyone ever dealt with a controlling, manipulative sponsor mentor like this? And how do I fight back when he's literally trying to sabotage my financial life? I feel so stupid for letting a 79-year-old man control my life for this long, but I'm terrified of what he will do next. Help, please. Throwaway AA account title. Update. My 79-year-old toxic mentor didn't just sabotage my dream job, he tried to get me fired from my current job, but Karen Jenkins is my new goddamn hero and I finally got my 5th floor office. I'm shaking, but it's a good kind of shaking this time. I posted last night from the Costco parking lot, right? My battery was at 3%. I managed to plug the iPhone 14 into the crusty charger in the Civic and just sat there reading all your comments. Seriously, thank you. Thank you for not telling me I was crazy. Thank you for validating that what Jack did, the burner text, the public shaming, the job sabotage was not just toxic, it was straight up abuse. I got like 300 DMs just saying, block him, call the police. I couldn't stop crying, but reading that I wasn't alone felt like the first deep breath I'd taken in weeks. I finally called Mark, my actual sponsor, around midnight. He lives 3 hours away, so he missed the downtown meeting blowout, which was a blessing. I had to tell him everything, and I mean everything. The Panera lunches, the IKEA desk assembly, the constant gaslighting, the missed work, the $347 electric bill he lent me money for, which I now realize was probably my money in the first place, TBH, and finally the nuclear meltdown and the burner text. Mark was furious, but not at me. He kept saying, Henry, you didn't cause this and you couldn't control it. This is Jack's sickness running wild. Your service turned into servitude. He told me to immediately change my number and not to respond to that burner text under any circumstances. He also told me to get a damn good night's sleep, which LOL, right, I didn't sleep. I drove home to apartment 3B, checked the locks 4 times, and just sat on my couch playing Sudoku until the sun came up. I was terrified Jack was going to show up. He knows where I live, obviously, because I drove him to my place to help me change a light bulb last month. Past me was such an idiot, I swear. The first consequence, so 2 days later, I was back at my inventory management job. I was walking on eggshells. My inbox was still at 247, maybe higher now, but I couldn't focus. I kept glancing at my work email, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped at 10:30 a.m. My supervisor, Linda, who is terrifying and always smells vaguely of industrial-strength sanitizer, called me into her office. I thought it was about the inventory report I hadn't finished yet. She closed the door, which is never good. Henry, she said, tapping her pen against a stack of performance reviews, I received a phone call yesterday afternoon, a very strange, specific phone call. My stomach literally clenched into a hard, miserable ball. I knew who it was, I just knew. It was from a man identifying himself as a community leader, a spiritual mentor of yours. Linda continued, her eyes narrowed. He expressed serious concern about your professional conduct and ethics. Specifically, he claimed you've been using company time to handle his personal errands, taking excessive undocumented PTO, and here's the real kicker, that you allegedly used company resources inventory tracking software, he claimed, to manage his personal, undeclared assets. He even brought up that $347 electric bill you asked to be flexible about last month. I was speechless. Jack didn't just try to torpedo the new job, he was actively trying to destroy the job I already had. The audacity. The level of detail was sickening. He knew the specific inventory software we use, SAP NGL, it sucks. He was watching me. Linda, that is absolutely untrue, I managed to stammer out. I was shaking again, but this time it wasn't fear, it was pure cold rage. That man Jack Core is not my mentor. He's a codependent relationship I've been trying to extract myself from. He is retaliating because I finally set a firm boundary that cost him a personal favor. I have documentation texts, GPS data showing that I only drove him during unpaid lunch breaks or PTO I logged correctly. The asset claim is insane. I wouldn't even know how to use SAP for personal use, I can barely use it for work. I explained the whole AA public shaming situation, summarizing it quickly, trying to sound professional while my entire life was collapsing. Linda looked skeptical, which fair. It sounds completely insane when you say, a 79-year-old multimillionaire in recovery is trying to ruin my life because I wouldn't look at his leaky basement. She finally sighed. Look, Henry, I don't know who is telling the truth, but this call was highly inappropriate and highly specific. I don't see any evidence of you misusing SAP, but I do see that you've been distracted lately. I need you to take 2 days of mandated PTO unpaid, sorry, and figure this out. If I get one more call or if I see any drop in performance, we are going to have to let you go. This is a final warning. I walked out of there feeling like I'd just been punched in the throat. Jack had won the first round, absolutely. I was suspended, I was financially screwed, and I was completely isolated. The unexpected ally, Karen Jenkins, I did exactly what Mark told me to do. I changed my phone number. It was a nightmare updating 2-factor authentication on everything, but I did it. I also blocked Jack's burner number. A week went by where I literally sat in apartment 3B, eating cheap cereal, staring at my ceiling. I couldn't bring myself to go to any meetings. I felt like a pariah. I was actively ignoring my actual sponsor Mark's calls because I felt like such a failure. I was terrified of running into anyone from the fellowship, especially Jack. Then Tuesday morning I got an email. It was an old email account I barely check, linked to the AA roster, not my new phone. Subject, Ray, Jack Core's behavior. Sender, Karen Jenkins, 85F. My heart rate spiked. I had blocked Karen on social media out of panic, but I hadn't blocked her email because I forgot she even used email. She usually communicates via handwritten notes and GL. The email was long, surprisingly well formatted, and dripping with controlled fury. Henry, I know you ran out of the meeting the other night, and frankly, I don't blame you. Jack was despicable. I want you to know that several of us, the actual old-timers, not the performance artists, were appalled by his conduct and his complete disregard for the principles of anonymity and Tradition 12. More importantly, I need to tell you 2 things. First, Jack has been doing this for years. You are not the first young protege he has burned out. You are just the first one who had the strength to stand up to him. 2 years ago, it was David in accounting. David ended up relapsing because Jack convinced him he was worthless. Jack is a spiritual vampire, Henry. He preys on codependency because it feeds his immense, fragile ego. Second, and this is crucial, Henry, I have proof about the job. I know how he did it. I share a physical therapist with Jack. Hip issues, don't ask. Jack is obsessed with the therapist's son who happens to work in HR consulting downtown. Jack spends every session bragging about his service work and complaining about the ungrateful youth. Last week, when he was in for his hip adjustment, he was on the phone, absolutely gloating about how he handled your interview process. He didn't call the logistics firm directly. He leveraged his connection with the HR consultant, offering to buy him a very expensive bottle of scotch. I overheard this entire conversation while waiting for my appointment, Henry. I was pretending to read a very old copy of Reader's Digest. If the consultant would provide deep background checks on certain candidates for the logistics firm, that HR consultant, he's the one who was hired to do the final vetting for Ms. Thompson's firm. Jack fed the consultant a pack of lies, that you misused group funds, that you are unreliable, that you had a massive confrontation with a venerable community leader because you stole money. He spun your refusal to run his errands into financial malfeasance and betrayal of trust. I need you to know this was calculated. It was not a sudden burst of rage. It was premeditated sabotage. He tried to ruin you because you stopped feeding him. I have the name of the HR consultant. I also have the date and approximate time Jack made the phone call. If you need a character witness to verify Jack's obsession with control and his pattern of retaliation, you call me. My number is below. I don't care if it ruins Jack's 40 years of sobriety status. He has earned this. Karen J, the one with the big hair and the even bigger cane. I literally sat there for 5 minutes staring at the screen. Karen Jenkins. Woman I thought was just a competitive gossip queen was actually a sharp, observant witness who saw through Jack's entire facade. And she was offering to put her neck out for me. I immediately called her new number. I didn't stammer this time. Karen, this is Henry Hill. I just got your email. Thank you. I mean that. Thank you so much. Don't thank me, Henry, she said, her voice surprisingly strong. Jack is a malignancy. We need to cut it out. Did you lose the new job for good? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Thompson, the hiring manager, cited documented integrity issues during final vetting. Jack went after my current job too, Karen. I'm on unpaid, mandated PTO right now because he called my supervisor. Karen cursed, an impressive string of colorful language I won't repeat here, NGL. Okay, this changes things. We can't just fix the new job, we need to protect the old one. Do you have documentation from your current supervisor about the complaint? It was verbal, I said, frustrated. Get it in writing, Henry. Email Linda immediately and summarize the conversation. Say, following up on our discussion regarding the highly inappropriate and factually inaccurate external complaint made by Mr. Jack Core, get it on paper. She was brilliant. She helped me craft the email to Linda, making sure I used professional, detached language, focusing on Jack's inappropriate external interference rather than just the emotional drama. Then we talked about the logistics firm. Henry, you crushed that interview. That job was yours. Jack didn't block you because you weren't good enough. He blocked you because he was scared of losing you to a better life. Ms. Thompson wanted you. We need to give her the truth with evidence. The confrontation that wasn't, I knew I couldn't call Ms. Thompson and just say, the 79-year-old guy is a liar. I needed proof. Karen suggested a cease and desist letter, but I didn't have the money for a lawyer yet, especially since I was unpaid. I went back to the only documentation I had, the texts. I started scrolling through the thousands of texts Jack had sent me over the last 6 months. He never outright demanded things. He used passive language. I was just hoping you would be available for this important service opportunity, or it would mean so much if my friend could spare a few hours to help the infirm. But then I found it, the text exchange right before the interview when I told him I couldn't drive across town. Me, Jack, I really need to stay clear tonight. Big interview tomorrow. I can sell the $85 to the plumber right now if you need it. Jack, Henry, this is not about money. This is about loyalty. You will regret turning your back on me when I need you most. I thought you valued true friendship. The day after the AA meeting, the burner text arrived. And then 10 days earlier, I found another text related to the $347 electric bill, which I had forgotten about entirely. Me, hey Jack, thanks again for spotting me the money for the electric bill. I'll pay you back on the 15th. Jack, don't worry about it, my boy. That's what mentors are for. But remember, Henry, money is a bond of trust. You owe me more than just cash. You owe me time and service. I had proof of the debt being called a bond, proof of the retaliation, and proof of his threat right before the job rejection. It wasn't airtight legal evidence, but it showed a pattern of emotional blackmail and control. I decided to take Karen's information, the name of the HR consultant Jack bragged to, and package it all up. I wrote a measured, professional email to Ms. Thompson. I didn't accuse Jack directly of everything. I used the language Linda taught me, inappropriate external interference. Dear Ms. Thompson, I was deeply disappointed by the outcome of my application for the supply chain analyst role, particularly given your positive feedback about my qualifications. You mentioned concerns regarding integrity and reliability stemming from a highly specific recent complaint. I believe I have identified the source of this interference, and it is a case of extreme targeted professional sabotage stemming from a non-work-related personal conflict involving a manipulative individual, Jack Core, 79M. Mr. Core, who mistakenly believes he is entitled to control my time and resources, is currently retaliating against me for establishing necessary boundaries. He has gone to extreme lengths to damage my reputation professionally, including attempting to get me fired from my current role, and I believe contacting the external HR consultant your firm utilized for final vetting. I understand that this situation is dramatic and unusual. However, my integrity is critical. I have attached screenshots of communications that show Mr. Kaur's pattern of control and subsequent threats after I refused his demands for personal service. I can also provide a detailed affidavit from another respected member of my community, Karen Jenkins, who overheard Mr. Kaur actively planning this sabotage. I realize this is unorthodox, but I am asking for an opportunity to provide clarity, not to challenge your decision. The facts presented to you were demonstrably false and motivated purely by malice. I am happy to discuss this further. I press send. My heart hammered in my chest. This was it. I was putting all my eggs in the basket of a busy HR professional having enough time and interest to wade through my toxic mentorship drama. The dream job reversal. Fast forward to Friday. I was still suspended, still eating cereal and trying to apply for side gig data entry work just to cover the rent. I felt hopeless. I was worried I had just made Ms. Thompson think I was even more unstable. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer it. Hello, Henry Hill. This is Ms. Thompson. I got your email. Oh God, this was either going to be amazing or I was going to hear a whole new level of documented integrity issues. Yes, Ms. Thompson, thank you for reading it. Henry, I read it very carefully, and I forwarded the information regarding the HR consultant to our legal team immediately. That consultant, let's call him Mr. X, is actually a contracted vendor, and if what you and your witness, Ms. Jenkins, claim is true, Mr. X breached his contract by disseminating false, malicious, and personal information about a candidate based on external, non-professional input. Wait, she actually looked into it. He breached confidentiality and frankly, he cost us a fantastic candidate, she continued, her voice sharp. We pride ourselves on ethical hiring. I called Mr. X yesterday. He confirmed that a community leader provided him with unverified background information that he, quote, may have overrelied upon because of the severity of the claims. She paused. I was clutching my cereal bowl so tight my knuckles were white. Henry, I am exceptionally sorry this happened to you. This man, Jack Kaur, sounds utterly monstrous. We have terminated our relationship with the consultant. And frankly, the resilience you showed in immediately tracking down this egregious breach and providing documentation speaks volumes about your character, more volumes than any reference could. My eyes started to water. I had to clear my throat twice. Ms. Thompson, are you saying? I am saying, Henry, that the offer is back on the table. We want you as our supply chain analyst. The salary is $72,000 plus full benefits starting 2 weeks from Monday. The fifth floor office is waiting for you. I almost dropped the phone. $72,000, the fifth floor redemption. Yes, I choked out. Yes, I accept, absolutely. I hung up the phone and screamed. I literally screamed so loud my neighbor pounded on the wall of apartment 3B. I didn't care. I got the job. I got the dream job. Jack failed. The final showdown, sort of the immediate relief was incredible, but I knew the war wasn't over. Jack was still out there lurking. And I still had to formally leave my current job, which meant facing Linda again, and I still had to decide how to handle the AA fellowship. First, I called Linda. I resigned, giving 2 weeks notice effective immediately since I was already on mandated PTO. I didn't mention the new job. I just said I needed to prioritize my mental health and find a less stressful environment. Linda, surprisingly, was relieved. She wished me well and said she hoped that situation was resolved. Next, I called Karen Jenkins. I told her the news. She let out a cackle that could shatter glass. That's fantastic, Henry. I knew he couldn't get away with it forever. Now, what about the meetings? You can't let him chase you out of your recovery. She was right. I needed to go back, not for him, but for me. I needed to show up, head held high, and reclaim my space. The following Monday, I went back to the downtown meeting. I wore my suit, the one I wore to the interview, just to feel powerful. The room was buzzing. Everyone knew about the meeting disaster, and thanks to Karen, the narrative was already starting to shift. People weren't just whispering about me, they were whispering about Jack's erratic behavior and Karen's surprisingly effective call-out. I sat in the front row this time, right next to Karen. Jack walked in, saw me, saw Karen, and froze. He was wearing his perfectly ironed shirt, but he looked deflated. He clearly hadn't expected me to return so soon or with a powerful ally. The meeting started. I raised my hand for a share early on. My hands were shaking again, but I forced myself to be steady. I walked up to the podium. Jack was staring lasers at me. Hi, my name is Henry, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Henry, the room responded. I wanted to share tonight about the spiritual principle of integrity and what it looks like when that integrity is challenged. I began, my voice clear and strong, not cracking like last time. About a week and a half ago, I experienced something devastating. I experienced public humiliation and character assassination in this very room, followed by very calculated professional sabotage outside of this fellowship. It came from a man I considered a mentor. I looked directly at Jack. He didn't flinch, but his jaw was tight. I let myself become codependent. I mistook control for care. I allowed another person's ego to take precedence over my own livelihood, my own steps, and my own safety. When I finally drew a boundary, that person sought to punish me by destroying my reputation and costing me a job that would have offered me financial stability. I paused, letting the silence settle. 50 people were watching. I need to make something very clear to this fellowship. I am committed to my sobriety. I am committed to service. But service does not mean allowing yourself to be manipulated, abused, or used as someone else's chauffeur and bank account. I learned the hard way that when someone attempts to dismantle your life because you refuse to be their puppet, that person is not your friend and they are not practicing the principles of this program. I didn't use Jack's name. I didn't need to. Everyone knew. I was told that my pride and selfishness would cause me to fail. I was told that if I tried to fly without my foundation, I would fall. I continued, looking directly at Jack's red face. But guess what? My foundation is stronger than one toxic relationship. My foundation is my connection to a higher power, my sponsor Mark, and my willingness to keep showing up even when it's terrifying. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to cry happy tears. And despite that calculated attempt to sabotage my future, I got the job. I start in 2 weeks. I did not fall, I flew, and I am done letting fear or Jack control my recovery. My commitment tonight is to detach with love from that toxic relationship and to never let anyone confuse control with connection again. I finished my share and the room erupted in applause. Not just polite applause, but loud, genuine clapping. As I walked back to my seat, several people touched my arm and gave me nods of respect. Jack was still sitting there, completely white. He didn't share, he didn't even make eye contact. The aftermath and logistics the months that followed were messy, honestly. They weren't a clean, neat movie ending. Jack, he kept showing up to meetings, but his power was diminished. Karen's narrative, combined with my public stand and the news of my new job, completely flipped the script. Old-timers were furious at him for breaking anonymity and using the rooms as his personal stage. I heard through the grapevine my friend Sarah, who still talks to Karen, that Jack tried to start his own, smaller, more exclusive meeting at his house, but it failed because he was too controlling. I've seen him maybe twice in public since then, and he quickly looked away. I still keep his number blocked. I still have the trauma NGL. Every time an unknown number calls, I get a spike of anxiety. Karen Jenkins. Karen has become my official honorary fellowship fairy godmother. She keeps me updated on the drama, and she made sure the story about Jack calling my previous job circulated quickly enough that if he ever tries anything again, people won't believe him. She even showed up at my new 5th floor office. I literally moved into the supply chain analyst role, and it's amazing, with a potted succulent and a card that said, "Fly high, Henry." And stop letting old men control your schedule. I love her. The financials, this was the hardest part. I only had 2 days of unpaid PTO from my old job, which meant the suspension didn't financially destroy me, thankfully. I started the new job 2 weeks later, and the first paycheck was massive compared to my old one. I am aggressively paying down my credit card debt and that rental expense. I sent Jack an itemized Venmo request for every Panera lunch, every tank of gas, and the $347 he lent me for the electric bill, totaling $897.43. He left me on read. Mark told me to just write it off as the cost of the lesson learned, and I'm okay with that. The freedom is worth more than the money. Apartment 3B. I realized I couldn't stay in apartment 3B not because Jack was a physical threat, but because I had spent 6 months there under his psychological control. It felt toxic. I found a new place, a studio apartment on the other side of town. It's tiny, but it's mine. Moving was a logistical nightmare, but I did it all myself, no help from anyone in the fellowship, which felt like a victory in itself. I changed all the locks and I feel safe again. Codependency and recovery. The biggest change is in my recovery. Mark is helping me work through step 4 and 5, focusing on my pattern of seeking validation from powerful, controlling figures. I realized my need to be the good boy who helps everyone came from deep childhood stuff, and Jack just perfectly exploited that vulnerability. I am now extremely vigilant about saying no. My new coworker asked me to stay late and help him organize his supply closet yesterday, and I said, "I can't tonight, I have recovery commitments." And I didn't feel guilty. That is a massive breakthrough, NGL. Reflection. I'm sitting here on the 5th floor now, eating my sad desk lunch, a turkey sandwich, which is a big upgrade from stale cereal. It's been 3 months since the blow-up. I still have moments where the shame washes over me, usually when I'm alone in the car. I still have to mentally check myself when I want to immediately agree to help someone just to please them, but I'm doing it. I am no longer terrified of a 79-year-old man with an expensive shirt. I am financially stable for the first time in my adult life. I have a community that, while messy, actually supports my recovery, not just my ability to run errands. The biggest thing I learned: true service isn't servitude. Service requires boundaries. If helping someone costs you your stability, your job, or your peace, it's not service. It's sacrifice based on guilt, and it's unsustainable. I'm not flying solo because I have Mark and I have Karen and I have my commitment to my program, but I am flying free. And Jack's little prayer that my selfishness would take me out of the program, it failed. The lack of willingness to be used, which he called a lethal defect, was actually the exact thing that saved my life and launched my career. Anyway, that's the update. I'm exhausted but happy. And if any of you are dealing with a controlling person who weaponizes the language of service or spirituality against you, please listen to the 100 people who told me, get out, block them. Your life is worth protecting. We'll update if anything else insane happens, but TBH, things are blissfully boring right now. I hope they stay that way.